Awesome. So, when I first got introduced to this technology, I had used curcumin and turmeric in various forms and fashions for most of those years in practice, trying literally dozens of different formulas. So, like many of you, when I heard about a new curcumin supplement or a new curcumin technology, I wasn't terribly excited, right? Anybody else that kind of feel like that? Oh, it's curcumin. I've heard about it. I've tried it. I've used it. But a friend of mine, you may know Ryan Stokes and Kylie Stokes, good friends of mine. They wouldn't take no for an answer, and they sent me some more information. They sent me some more research and studies, and and when I saw the research that showed that this technology was up to 277 times more bioavailable, I didn't necessarily believe that right off the bat, but that did get my attention. And I said, I don't know if I believe that, but what if, right? That was my question. What if this is true? This will change everything. Indeed, it has changed everything. And so, of course, we always have to have disclaimers when we talk about health issues. We talk about nutritional supplements that we're not intending to replace professional medical advice for information, educational purposes, all of that, right? And so I'm going to go a little bit about sharing some information that Dr. Caesar mentioned on the last wellness webinar. So I'm going to touch just a little bit of that and then on to some of the BioMS technology. So we all know it comes from turmeric, right? Most people don't know that turmeric is the root of this beautiful plant over here, this curcuma longa plant, right? And it's not such a pretty root of this curcuma longa plant, but it's been called the most powerful medicinal plant known to man. And I honestly believe that that is true. Curcumin is a component, right? It's the bioactive component. It's the special sauce of turmeric, curcumin. And curcumin is only about 2 to 6% of the makeup of turmeric root. I just pulled this off of PubMed last night. If you just type in curcumin, there's over 22,000, and there's nothing else that comes close to this in the research as far as the amount of research, the amount of studies, the amount of publications on a single vitamin, mineral, herb as there is on curcumin. And I always say that they wouldn't spend this much money, time, and effort on something if it wasn't very special, right? And so we touched a little bit on some of the curcumin effects in the literature on its anti-inflammatory activity, right? Its antioxidant activity, its anti-cancer effects, neuroprotective, hepatoprotective, which is liver, cardiovascular, anti-diabetic, immune regulation, and we could go on everything from Alzheimer's disease and autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, cardiovascular, atherosclerosis, leaky gut. Let's see, was neuropathy in the C word. And so there's so much research in all of these areas. I love this article here mostly because of this visual, right? This talking about all of the inflammatory pathways that are inhibited by curcumin. All of these are individual pathways that are involved in multiple different health conditions and disease processes. Another from the same article talking about the different areas of concentrated research in different health conditions. And I won't read all of these, but from liver diseases to lung diseases to skin diseases, neurodegenerative disorders, inflammatory diseases, infectious diseases, endocrine, heart, skeletal, and the C word again. And all of those are heavily researched health conditions where curcumin has shown some benefit, okay? But, right, there's always a but. What's the catch? And we talked a little bit about this last time, 2 weeks ago, was the hidden secret in curcumin and turmeric, right? And it all has to do with bioavailability. The percentage of curcumin that's ingested that actually gets through the intestinal barrier is shockingly less than 10%. In fact, it's actually much less than that many times, sometimes as low as 1%. And this is well known. If you look at any of the research in the curcumin space, the turmeric space, it talks about this. The problem of curcumin is its bioavailability, right? This goes on to say it's been confirmed to exhibit very poor bioavailability, with studies showing very low or even undetectable concentrations in the blood and extraintestinal tissues. Major reasons are due to its poor absorption, rapid metabolism, chemical instability, and rapid systemic elimination. And so, all of the early studies that they did in, in the lab, in petri dishes and test tubes and cell cultures and all of these things, when they knew that curcumin had magical medicinal properties, then they would try to reproduce this in human studies and oftentimes would not see the same benefits, right? And many times they couldn't even detect it in the bloodstream. And can you imagine being a scientist and the frustration that would come with that, right? And so even in this article here, it talks about, in fact, some researchers have argued that given its unstable, reactive, and non-bioavailable nature, further clinical trials on curcumin are unwarranted. This is what some scientists have said. And this was from Scientific American. And this researcher here said, so what do you get when you look closely at the molecule and its activities? Well, for one thing, curcumin's stability and pharmacokinetics are absolutely terrible. And it's less than 1% bioavailable. Its half-life under physiological conditions is measured in minutes. He goes on to say that much effort and funding has been wasted on curcumin research. All right, and that brings us to what we're excited to talk about tonight is how do we get curcumin to reach our cells and perform its function? Of course, this is where our BioMS technology comes into play. This was actually funded through the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research through the University of Hohenheim in Germany, right? This is where it all started. This is where the magic of BioMS began, with a research grant of 1.5 million, I believe that's euros. This is where BioMS began. But BioMS is not just one technology, it's really three technologies in one. First, we take the curcumin and we convert that into the BioMS curcumin. And this is a little bit about what that looks like. So first we harvest it, right? This is harvested in India without chemicals, organic, 100% natural turmeric root, right? We select it, it's cleaned, it's washed. And then what comes next is what they call the oleoresin of curcumin is extracted. So we have the raw material, okay? Then we add some heat, we add some dehydration, some pulverization, and then we get the turmeric powder, okay? From there, we have the curcumin extraction, the crystallization, which enlarges the surface availability of the curcumin, centrifuge, and we end up with this curcumin oleoresin. Okay, this is the first step. The technology is getting the curcumin out of the turmeric, right? And then we undergo the top secret, right? This is where the patents come in, that we convert the curcumin oleoresin into the BioMS technology. So from root to the micellar nanotechnology starts from the turmeric root to the oleoresin curcumin, applying the nanotechnology. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means, and the micellization technology to come out with a particle size of less than 30 nanometers. So this is what it looks like here. This is I often call this as like a little submarine that delivers the curcumin, right? Delivers the curcumin to throughout the body to our cells, because curcumin, of course, does not absorb well. They call it lipophilic, loves fat, hydrophobic, it hates water. That's a problem, right? When our body's mostly made of what? Mostly made of water, right? And so BioMS stands for biotechnology with micelle solubilisates. So say that 5 times fast. This is the patented technology, right? We have the micelle that surrounds and protects the curcumin core. And of course, we know that the technology or the research that was published shows that up to 277 times more bioavailable with this process. So the oleoresin extraction achieves greater amounts of the active ingredient. We waste less turmeric root, and we have higher content purity. Micellization is a patented process that creates microscopic particles of oil or fat-soluble nutrients. That's everything, could be used for anything from fat-soluble vitamins to antioxidants to things like curcumin. With this process, these nutrients become water-soluble, which is unheard of for curcumin to be water-soluble, which highly increases its absorption in the body as well as the plasma levels in the blood. So my cells have hydrophobic, phobic means fear, right? And hydrophilic, loving components. So water-loving and water-fearing components. So the outside structure of the micelle is hydrophilic, it loves water, and we can contain substance on the inside that are potentially hydrophobic, fearing water, like our curcumin, right? So we won't go into all the details about how micelles are formed, but it starts with it coming through the digestive process through the stomach into the small intestine, where the gallbladder secretes bile salts. And with the bile salts from the gallbladder and pancreatic enzymes from the pancreas, we create and start to break down and create these micelle structures. So they're naturally formed. So when we talk about micelles, we're not just talking about the micelle in our technology, like it's just some outside technology. Micelles are naturally formed in our body, right? It's a natural process. This is why our body recognizes our products so well. It's very familiar with micelles. We do it every day in our digestive process, okay? So the formation of micelles is crucial for the absorption of fats. Since converting the lipids into small water-soluble particles, it increases their surface area and facilitates its intestinal absorption. This allows the end products of lipid digestion to cross the intestinal barrier and be absorbed by the cells in the intestines. Once the lipids have been absorbed, they are repackaged in what they call chylomicrons. After their micelles, they become chylomicrons, which are lipoproteins that transport the lipids like a little submarine again through the lymphatic system and into the blood circulation for distribution. So again, micellization is a natural process. And the advantages of micellizing curcumin is it's resistant to gastric juices. That's one thing that we don't talk about much, is that curcumin can be disrupted and broken down to more inactive metabolites just by stomach acid alone, okay? So we have greater absorption, we have faster absorption, we have higher plasma levels, higher blood levels, and increased in our tissues. So I like this little visual here, because when we talk about things like, we hear about water-soluble vitamins, like things like vitamin C or B vitamins, right? You can see that those go quickly and easily in through the small intestine barrier here, right? And into the bloodstream, okay? Now, this is what lipophilic actives like curcumin generally look like. Not near as smooth of a process, right? Because we have to get through the stomach, we have to survive the stomach, we have to get into the small intestine, we have to get broken down and made into micelle structures, and we have to get through that intestinal barrier. And very little curcumin actually gets that far. Not only that, once it gets into the bloodstream, a lot of that goes through the liver. And guess what the liver does? Is the liver quickly breaks down a lot of the curcumin, right? So very little ever remains in the bloodstream to ever get to our tissues, our organs, our brain, etc. And here we have our BioMS, right? It's wrapped in the micelle technology from the beginning. Our body doesn't have to do all of that process. It's already provided in the micelle structure and quickly is able to get to that intestinal barrier. The micelle structure is cleaved off, allowing the curcumin to easily enter the bloodstream and quickly to our tissues, our cells, etc. All right, so nanotechnology, what is this? There's a lot of misunderstanding with nanotechnology. It's really the science of things small. So nanotechnology is a field of science that studies, that focuses on the study, design, manipulation, application of materials, devices, and systems at an extremely small scale. The level of nanometers, so the equivalent of 1 nanometer is 1 billionth of a meter. So when we look at that, we look at the scale here, these are nanometers here. So down here is atom size, okay? Then we get into molecule size here at the 1 nanometer mark. We're talking about particle sizes in the 30 nanometer range, right, which would fall in here. This is smaller than viruses and bacteria. We go from nanometers to micrometers to millimeters to centimeters, okay? That's the progression of measurement. So this will blow your mind that a nanometer, we're talking less than 30 nanometer particle size. A red blood cell is 7,000 nanometers wide. A strand of DNA is 2.5 nanometers wide. Human hair is 100,000 nanometers thick. That's how small the particle size is. So we're talking about the science of things small. So that improves the solubility, the absorption, the bioavailability, right, of those active ingredients. It achieves action in the targeted cells that we want that curcumin, and we've desired that curcumin for decades to be able to reach. We're finally reaching that. Promotes the passage of the active ingredient through the epithelial and endothelial barriers. Achieves the passage of the macromolecules to the intracellular sites of action where it can do its magic. Reduces the possibility of toxicity and protects the curcumin from degradation. So we have the best of both. We have both micelles immediately upon ingestion combined with the nanotechnology, ending up with the final product, which is our BioMS technology, a BioMS nanofied curcumin, our curcumin plus. Love to see what you guys prefer, your favorite in the comments. You prefer nanofied, you prefer curcumin plus. I'm a nanofied guy, right? It's the OG, but that's just my preference. The micellized nanocurcumin is our final product with improved absorption, bioavailability, soluble in both water and lipids, which is what we're excited about. Like we talked about, less than 30 nanometer particle size. So just to wrap your mind around that, it would take about 17 pounds of turmeric root ingested to ever compete with 10 drops of our amazing technology. Does anybody want to sign up for that study to consume the 17 pounds of turmeric root? No, nobody raised their hand. Okay. So this is a good visual. I love visuals. So this was a study, right? They gave the participants 2,000 milligrams of curcumin, right? They tracked it in the bloodstream and they tracked it over time. Well, you guys will have to lean in closer to see the peak of curcumin, native curcumin at 1 hour. Ta-da! This is the peak. Pretty exciting, huh? This is what curcumin by itself can do, is get into the bloodstream about there. Okay, look what happens by 2 hours. It's gone, right? Can you tell why the researchers would have such frustration as they tried to study curcumin in the human body? It doesn't get in there. We hear a lot about this black pepper extract. Well, my curcumin, my turmeric has black pepper extract. It solves the bioavailability issue. Well, not so fast. I would agree that this appears a little bit better peak, right? A little more exciting peak than this one down here. But this is where it peaks about 45 minutes, right? By 1 hour, look where we're at, okay? By 3 hours, look where we're at. It's gone again, okay? So we see a brief peak here in curcumin. By how does black pepper work? It slows down liver detoxification, specifically phase 2. My problem with this approach is slowing down phase 2 liver detoxification just to get a brief peak, a brief spike of curcumin in the bloodstream. We kind of need our liver, don't we? And is it a good idea for people that might be taking other medications, other supplements, to slow down the detoxification process of those things as well? I don't think that's such a good approach to get this small of a benefit of curcumin, okay? This is what we're achieving with our BioMS. This is native curcumin in men and women down here. Well, we can't even see it come off of the baseline, okay? That's how small it is. Compared to the BioMS in men and women here, this is what we're achieving at levels we've never even come close to before. We've never even thought possible that curcumin could get into the body at these levels. And what's more exciting than achieving those levels in the bloodstream is look for how long, right? We were lucky to be able to achieve 2 hours with curcumin. We might add black pepper extract and maybe get it to 3 hours if we're lucky. 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours later in a single 10-drop dose, we still have measurable amounts of curcumin in the bloodstream. What scientists took forever to look for, right, and many times couldn't even find it in the bloodstream within a couple of hours, we're seeing in the bloodstream at therapeutic benefits for up to and over 24 hours. Amazing. So this is important to remember. It's not about how much curcumin you take. People are taking thousands upon thousands of milligrams of turmeric and curcumin to try to get a therapeutic benefit. But it's how much is absorbed, how long it stays in your bloodstream, in your organs, and your tissues. Does that make sense? And so again, I'm from Missouri. It's a show me state. I love visuals. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, this must be worth 1,000,000 words, right? So we have the curcumin, right? Native curcumin dumped in water, and this is what you'd see, right? Can you see? Can you tell why it's not absorbed in your bloodstream? All right, this is our curcumin. This is our BioMS technology, easily absorbed into water, right? The miracle of turning something that's very afraid of water into something that mixes easily with water, which means also our bloodstream. I've shared a couple of labs before. I won't share the same ones again. I've got a new one that I thought would be exciting. Again, not saying the curcumin is treating this patient's maladies, okay? We agree with that. 62-year-old male with high blood pressure, high blood lipids, peripheral artery disease, cardiovascular disease, pre-diabetes, okay? Just telling you what he came from. What I'm showing you is not that we're treating those health conditions. What I'm showing you is what happened in his bloodstream when we provided the BioMS technology. Okay, real quickly, touch on this. Blood glucose started at 117, 6 months down to 103. A1C was in the pre-diabetic range at 5.9. It's now out of the pre-diabetic range at a 5.6. His fasting blood insulin was at a 27. It's now down to a 17. Same patient. Total cholesterol dropped from 225 to 206. Triglycerides a 163 down to a 145. His LDL cholesterol from a 122 to a 109. His HDL, his good cholesterol, actually rose from a 38 to a 45. Amazing things here. Lipoprotein A is a very inflammatory lipid particle that damages our arteries. Dropped that as well. LPPLA2 activity, long story short, is a marker for active plaquing in the arteries going on this very minute. Was actively plaquing 6 months later, he's not. This is a marker for vascular inflammation, dropped from an 8 to a 2. Anything above a 3 is high risk for cardiovascular disease. Dropped from an 8 to a 2. Fibrinogen is a sticky protein in our blood that if it's too high can cause plaquing and blood clots and everything like that. Dropped from elevation of 430 to 415.